The rain against the windowpane was the only sound greeting Arthur as he stepped into the terrace house in South London. It had been a grueling 12-hour shift at the firm, the kind that leaves your bones aching and your mind numb. All he'd thought about on the commute back was the quiet comfort of home, and Sarah. He kicked off his damp shoes by the door, noticing an unfamiliar umbrella dripping in the stand. David's, he realized vaguely. The neighbor from number 14. Sarah. Arthur called out, his voice swallowed by the quiet of the house. Receiving no answer, he walked up the creaking stairs, intending to change out of his suit. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, a warm slice of light spilling onto the landing carpet. He pushed it open, the greeting dying on his lips. There, in the center of the room they had spent 5 years decorating together, was his wife. And there was David. They weren't just talking. David's hands were framing Sarah's face, and they were caught in a desperate, bruising kiss, the kind born of a long-hidden familiarity. The world seemed to lose its axis. Arthur froze, the handle of his briefcase slipping from his numb fingers and hitting the floorboards with a dull thud. The sound broke them apart instantly. Sarah gasped, her eyes widening in sheer terror as she looked at her husband. David stepped back, his face flushing a deep, guilty crimson, his hands dropping to his sides. "Arthur," Sarah breathed, her voice trembling. It's not what it looks like." It was the cliché that cut the deepest. Arthur looked at her, really looked at her, noticing the slight dishevelment of her blouse, the flushed cheeks. Then he looked at David, a man he had shared pints with at the local pub, a man who had helped him fix the garden fence just last summer. "Get out," Arthur said. His voice wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was hollow, stripped of all resonance, carrying the weight of a sudden, suffocating grief. David didn't argue. He muttered a strained, pathetic apology, kept his eyes glued to the floor, and brushed past Arthur, practically fleeing down the stairs. The heavy thud of the front door closing echoed through the house. Silence descended again, heavier this time. "Arthur, please," Sarah pleaded, tears finally spilling over her lashes. She reached out a hand, but stopped when he took a deliberate step back. It was a mistake. A stupid, momentary mistake. "We were just talking, Anne. In our bedroom, Sarah." Arthur's voice cracked, the polite, reserved exterior he had maintained his whole life fracturing completely. "In our house." He looked around the room. The framed photos from their holiday in Cornwall, the bedside tables they'd assembled together, the linen he'd washed just last weekend. Everything felt contaminated. The sanctuary they had built against the harshness of the world had been dismantled in a single afternoon. "I love you," she sobbed, stepping toward him again. "Please, don't look at me like that." But Arthur couldn't look at her any other way. The trust hadn't just broken, it had dissolved. He felt an overwhelming exhaustion wash over him, heavier than any fatigue from his job. Without a word, Arthur turned away from the bedroom. He walked down the stairs, picked up his damp shoes, and opened the front door, stepping back out into the cold, unforgiving London rain.